Hey kiddos, I'm in my house robe. I needed to be comfortable. Attended mass this morning. Had to have a friend drive me because I wasn't quite up to driving today. Yesterday was a rough day. I had to smile. I got to enter after the procession had gone through and processional music was still playing. So I slowly but gracefully walked up the aisle to the front pew, took off my glasses, which I do here because there's sort of a public society shield. Listen to the reading of the scriptures and then the gospel from the book of James. No one's quite certain who this James was. There's a lot of speculation as to, oh, could be the brother of Jesus, could be some other folk that wrote about something, but they were sort of within the time frame of having lived or maybe even personally known Jesus. And it was a good step on toes sermon. Finally, recognizing the church that I attend is very white privilege. And segregationist of a sort. It was mostly music in Latin, and I do like a Latin mass. I remember decades ago when I took my catechisms at St. Joseph's in Jasper, Indiana, and listening to Father Niemergut with his beard halfway down his chest and his ponytail halfway down his back in the beautiful Latin service. I never took communion there because even though I was attending, I was never a certified member. So today, I heard words I'd been waiting to hear. That Triple C needs to work on integration of music to make people feel included. Father Gray did a good job bringing it out. I've watched him grow up over the years. He's a good man. They all are good reverends, all in their own way. Some still living by laws, others by grace. But that's something that they'll learn about later on in their ministries. I did have to have someone drive me to church with yesterday of having been a bad day, and I just repeated myself. Unfortunately, I had to have Holy Eucharist brought to me in pew. A bit on the weak side. Then I went down to look at the ministries examples. I guess some people may have been watching my videos from the church. You can always tell in a passive-aggressive church when people avoid eye contact. It's okay, kiddos. I'm a very, very frightening person. I feel better after receiving communion in church. I don't know how many more times I'll be able to attend in church. And I can accept that. I can accept that maybe some seeds that were planted with a lot of manure, and because you have to sometimes on a dry land, give it a little bit of fertilizer, that they might be starting to sprout. There was a person from my community there too. I guess listening to the Holy Comfort and pushing past my limits, there's a reason. But now I'm at home in my bathrobe, getting ready for a lay down with Rocco. He may reappear again. But I wanted to talk about Jess and Ruth Kinkade from St. Bernice. They were always brother and sister, never quite fit into grandparents. Ruth played the piano at church. She used to play piano for silent movies. I tell you what, that woman could throw in runs and thrills and everything into a gospel song. And she loved it. She was very quiet, probably a woman with a lot of personal pains. And the more we talk, the more you'll understand. I always enjoyed little visits with them. Now Jess, brother Jess, suffered from shell shock, a World War I term. Something happened his time in the service that he understood everything, but when it came to expressing himself, you had to feel what he was saying, because his words didn't always make sense. But as a child, I could feel what Jess was saying. And yes, I did have some older people come up to me and say, how can you try to understand? He's not making any sense. Well, kids, he was hearing the words you were saying. He just couldn't say the words he wanted to speak. Then Vietnam was going on. And a young man about halfway between the parsonage and Sister Ruth and Brother Jess's house was badly disfigured in action, to the point he had to have things delivered to the house because people stared at his face. It was disfigured. There was one day my father got a call, and I was told to stay home. The young man had hung himself in the basement because society was too cruel to appreciate what he gave up. I tell you what, No, I'll let that word rest. Now, Jess had, before he committed suicide, he and Jess used to visit. He was one of the only persons that the young man would let in the house because he understood what war had done to Jess. And Jess understood what the war had done to the young man. But after the word got passed around the town, and it doesn't take long, I remember walking down the street, and Jess was standing on the sidewalk in front of the young man's house, crying, sobbing his heart out. I was not old, but I could feel, and I just stood there with Brother Jess Kennedy. Jess pulled back into himself, which made it harder on Ruth. In little towns, there are many things that happen. There are memories. And they imprint on you. I'm going to leave the Kennedys there for a moment. I have one last great journey to take. To face my second grade persecution at the Rockville State Psychiatric Hospital Sanitarium during my first attempts to express the truth of who I was. The treatments I received there. It's part of a paranormal type of thing. You know, they sell great experiences overnight because that's when it's most active. Well, trapped spirits remember. In the daylight is when the doctors come. At night is their territory. I'm going to go to the procedure wing. I can remember the waiting room with the nurse's station. And I'm going to remember. And if there be spirits there, I'm going to ask them to recognize the terrified child that is inside of me. To see the procedure room where they did cranial probes with a fluoroscope. To see the deprivation chamber and maybe find the children's ward. I know that after those procedures there would have been recovery time. I want to experience the deprivation chamber as an adult and to hear my cries and screams that are still stuck in the walls. I want to complete the last part of the journey of terrors. of how people dealt with the others, the gender fluid, the transgender. There, I just added myself. And how it was all done under the name of God, an experiment. At the time I was there, it was nearing the end of the eugenics program, where it was perfectly legal to change people. Well, that behavior's wrong. Let's put a little probe in between the hippocampus and the pituitary gland because we believe that's where people's sexualities are. And let's move it around a little bit and see if we can screw with it. I don't know if there's many that have reached my age. I keep being told that I'm not old. Well, the body's tired. The spirit's young, and the mind is willing. I think I'll be a little more at peace when these flashback memories of the past year have slowly solidified into substance. We can never go back to that kind of society. It would be like a monoculture. Stepford wives. Stepford wives that was loosely based on women that were lobotomized to be able to be perfect wives. At certain times you did certain things and didn't have a thought of your own. Now I've laid out the heavies. It is Sunday, a day of rest. Keeping my robe on. Gonna finish up my coffee. Have a smoke. But like always, blessings be with and upon you. May you know your own personal faith. Know how to love yourself. Until next time I get on here and chat for a bit. Shoot, I might end up with a whole society of people afraid to meet my eye. Well, don't worry. There'll always be another. Be good. Stay blessed.